The Lantern by the River. Many years ago, in a quiet little town along the banks of the Mississippi River in the United States, there lived a young man named Samuel. The town was small and peaceful. Wooden houses stood beneath large oak trees, and every evening, the river reflected the colors of the setting sun. Samuel worked at a small general store. His days were simple. He greeted neighbors, stocked shelves, and listened to stories from travelers passing through town. He liked the calm rhythm of life and never hurried if he didn't need to. One autumn evening, after closing the store, Samuel decided to take a walk along the river. The air was cool and comfortable. Leaves drifted slowly from the trees and floated gently to the ground. As he walked, he noticed something unusual. Near an old wooden dock stood a lantern. It glowed with a warm golden light. Samuel was certain it had not been there the day before. Curious, he approached. The lantern was old but beautiful. Its brass frame shone softly, and its glass was perfectly clear. There was no note and no sign of who might own it. Samuel looked around. The river was quiet. No boats moved across the water. He picked up the lantern carefully. It felt surprisingly warm. Since nobody was nearby, he carried it home. That night, he placed the lantern beside his window. Its golden light filled the room with a peaceful glow. As Samuel sat in his chair reading a book, he noticed something interesting. Whenever he looked at the lantern, he felt calm. His worries faded. The busy thoughts in his mind seemed to slow down. The feeling was so pleasant that he sat quietly for a long time, simply watching the lantern's light. Eventually, he fell asleep in his chair. That night, he dreamed of rivers, forests, mountains, and wide open fields stretching across America. He saw snowy peaks in the west, golden plains in the middle of the country, green forests in the east. Everything seemed peaceful and connected, as if the whole land were breathing slowly beneath the stars. When Samuel woke the next morning, he felt more rested than he had in years. Days passed. The lantern remained by the window. Each evening, Samuel would light it and sit quietly nearby. Soon, neighbors began noticing changes. "You seem happier lately," said Mrs. Turner, who lived next door. "You always look so relaxed," said the town baker. Samuel simply smiled. "I've been spending more time sitting quietly in the evenings." That answer was true, though he didn't mention the lantern. One evening, an elderly traveler entered the store. His silver hair shone in the afternoon sunlight. He purchased a loaf of bread and a small bag of coffee. As Samuel packed the items, the traveler suddenly paused. "Young man," he said, "have you found a lantern recently?" Samuel blinked. "Actually, yes," the old traveler smiled. "I thought so." "You know about it?" Samuel asked. The man nodded. "I've heard stories about that lantern my entire life." Samuel leaned forward. "What kind of stories?" The traveler settled into a chair. Long ago, according to legend, a riverboat captain carried that lantern. He traveled thousands of miles across American rivers. Wherever he went, people said the lantern brought a sense of peace. Samuel listened carefully. The captain wasn't rich, the traveler continued. He didn't discover treasure. He wasn't famous. But he had a gift. He reminded people to slow down. The traveler looked toward the river outside. He would tell people that rivers never rush, yet they always reach their destination. Samuel thought about those words. They felt important somehow. The traveler eventually left town the next day, but his story remained with Samuel. That evening, Samuel carried the lantern back to the riverbank. He sat on the old dock. The river moved quietly beneath the moonlight. For the first time in years, he did absolutely nothing. No work, no plans, no worries. He simply listened. The water flowed gently. Crickets sang in the distance. A cool breeze rustled through nearby trees. Hours seemed to drift by like clouds. When he finally returned home, he felt lighter than ever. As the months passed, sitting quietly beside the river became a habit. Sometimes Samuel brought a book. Sometimes he brought a notebook. Often he brought nothing at all. He simply sat and watched the changing seasons. Winter arrived. Snow covered the town. The river became silent beneath cold gray skies. Samuel still visited. Wrapped in a warm coat, he watched snowflakes drift slowly from the clouds. Each one seemed unique. Each one landed softly and disappeared. Spring followed. Wildflowers appeared beside the river. Birds returned from distant places. Fresh green leaves unfolded across every tree. Summer arrived after that. The days grew longer. Children laughed along the river bank. Boats drifted lazily across the water. Long before there was a country called the United States, before cities rose and roads crossed the continent, humans and dogs were already walking side by side. Thousands of years ago, the ancestors of many Native American peoples traveled across vast landscapes. Alongside them were dogs, faithful companions that helped carry supplies, guarded camps, and shared warmth during cold nights. One evening, near a river beneath a sky full of stars, a young boy named Tawa sat beside his family's campfire. Next to him lay a dog with thick fur and alert ears. "Why does Koda always follow us?" Tawa asked his grandfather. The old man smiled. "Because long ago," he said, "humans and dogs made an agreement. We protect them and they protect us. We feed them and they help us survive. Since then, we have walked the same path." The dog lifted its head and wagged its tail as if it understood every word. Across the continent, countless people shared similar stories. Dogs helped hunt, warned families of danger, and became beloved members of communities. The friendship between humans and dogs was already ancient, and it was only the beginning. Chapter 2. The New Settlers. Centuries later, ships arrived from Europe carrying explorers and settlers. Many brought dogs with them. Among them was a young English settler named Thomas. In 1623, he stepped onto unfamiliar land carrying little more than a few tools and hope for a better future. Walking beside him was a brown hunting dog named Ranger. The first winter was harsh. Food was scarce. Storms battered their small settlement. One night, Thomas heard barking. Ranger was standing at the edge of the woods, growling. Thomas grabbed a lantern and followed. Just beyond the trees, a bear was moving toward the settlement's food storage. The barking awakened other settlers. Together, they scared the bear away. The next morning, Thomas scratched Ranger behind the ears. "You saved us again, old friend." Ranger's tail wagged furiously. Stories like this became common throughout colonial America. Dogs guarded livestock. They helped hunters find food. They protected families living on dangerous frontiers. Many settlers considered their dogs as important as any tool they owned. Sometimes even more important. Chapter 3. Across the Frontier. As settlements expanded westward, dogs continued their journey with humans. In the early 1800s, a young girl named Sarah traveled with her family in a wagon heading toward new lands. The journey was difficult. Dust filled the air, rivers had to be crossed, mountains blocked the way. Yet one member of the family never complained. A black and white dog named Scout. Scout ran beside the wagon every day. When Sarah felt lonely, Scout sat beside her. When strangers approached camp at night, Scout barked. When one of the family's sheep wandered away, Scout found it. One evening, Sarah sat beside the campfire. "Do you think Scout likes traveling?" she asked her father. Her father laughed. "I think he likes being wherever we are." Sarah looked at Scout sleeping peacefully. Maybe her father was right. Dogs didn't care about wealth or fame. They cared about their people, and that loyalty helped countless families survive the challenges of frontier life. Chapter 4: A Nation at War. The bond between Americans and dogs grew stronger during times of conflict. Chapter 5: The Age of Cities. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, America was changing rapidly. Cities grew larger.
Close your eyes and imagine a cool evening long ago, when the land that would one day become the United States was covered with endless forests, wide rivers, and quiet plains stretching beyond the horizon. Long before large cities, highways, and bright electric lights, the nights were much darker and calmer. The stars filled the sky like thousands of tiny lanterns. Gentle winds moved through the trees, and the sounds of nature drifted softly across the landscape. In the early 1600s, small groups of settlers arrived on the eastern shores of North America. Their ships crossed the vast Atlantic Ocean, moving slowly over rolling waves for many weeks. When they finally saw land, they discovered rivers reflecting the morning sunlight and forests filled with tall trees. Life moved at a slower pace then. People woke with the sunrise and rested when darkness arrived. They built simple homes from wood, planted crops, and gathered around fireplaces during the evening. The crackling of burning logs became the soundtrack of many peaceful nights. As years passed, small settlements grew into villages. Villages slowly became towns. Horses walked along dirt roads. Merchants carried goods in wooden wagons. Sailboats drifted quietly along rivers and coastal waters. The seasons guided daily life. Spring brought fresh green leaves and the promise of new harvests. Summer warmed the fields under long, golden afternoons. Autumn painted the forests in shades of red, orange, and gold. Winter covered the landscape with snow, creating peaceful silence across the countryside. In the 1700s, many communities flourished along the Atlantic coast. People spent evenings reading by candlelight, writing letters, sharing stories, and listening to the steady ticking of clocks. When night arrived, families often gathered together before sleep. They spoke softly about their day, the weather, and their hopes for the future. Outside, moonlight shone on quiet roads and peaceful fields. As the colonies grew, history continued its gentle march forward. New towns appeared beside rivers. Bridges connected communities. Small ships traveled between ports carrying supplies, letters, and news from distant places. Yet, despite these changes, much of life remained wonderfully calm. Travel was slow. A journey that takes a few hours today might have required several days. Travelers moved at the pace of walking horses. Along the way, they listened to birds singing in the morning and crickets chirping at night. Imagine one of those travelers now. The sun has set. The road stretches quietly through a forest. A soft breeze rustles the leaves overhead. The traveler arrives at a small inn where a warm meal waits beside a glowing fireplace. Outside, the stars shine brightly. Inside, the world feels peaceful and still. As the years became decades and the decades became centuries, America continued to grow. Railroads crossed the landscape, new cities appeared, factories hummed with activity. But even during times of change, there were always quiet moments. There were peaceful farms beneath moonlit skies. There were fishing boats rocking gently on calm waters. There were small towns settling into silence after sunset. There were families resting after long days of work. The rhythm of history is often slower than we imagine. Years pass like drifting clouds. Generations come and go. Rivers continue flowing toward the sea. The stars continue shining overhead. And through every chapter of American history, countless ordinary evenings ended in the same comforting way. With darkness settling over the land, fireplaces glowing softly, and people closing their eyes to rest. Now imagine standing beside a quiet river somewhere in early America. The water moves slowly, the trees sway gently, the night air is cool and calm. Far away, an owl calls once before silence returns. Above you, countless stars sparkle across the sky. The river keeps flowing, the wind keeps whispering. History keeps moving forward, one peaceful moment at a time. And as the night grows deeper, the world becomes quieter and quieter, until all that remains is the gentle sound of the river, the distant rustle of leaves, and the comforting feeling that everything is at peace. Sleep peacefully, and let the quiet journey of history carry you into a calm and restful night.
Way station in shades of gold. Travelers hurried across the platforms carrying bags, waving goodbye to loved ones, and searching for their coaches. The loudspeaker announced arrivals and departures while the aroma of tea and fresh snacks drifted through the air. Among the crowd stood a beautiful young woman named Ananya. She had sparkling brown eyes, long black hair tied neatly behind her shoulders, and a gentle smile that made people feel comfortable. She was traveling alone to attend a photography exhibition in another city. Her camera bag rested on one shoulder, and a novel was tucked under her arm. At the same station stood a young man named Arjun. Tall, confident, and kind-hearted. He had just finished university and was traveling to begin his first job. Though excited about the future, he felt nervous about leaving his hometown. Neither of them knew that a single train journey would change their lives forever. The train slowly rolled into the station. People rushed toward the doors. After finding her reserved seat by the window, Ananya placed her luggage on the rack and sat down. A few moments later, Arjun entered the same compartment. He checked his ticket twice. Seat 28. Yes, this is it. He smiled politely. Excuse me, I think this is my seat. Ananya looked up and smiled. Yes, the window seat is mine. You must be sitting next to me. Looks like we'll be traveling together, Arjun said. They exchanged friendly smiles. The train whistle echoed, and the journey began. For the first hour, neither of them spoke much. Ananya looked outside at green fields passing by, occasionally taking photographs through the window. Arjun read a book, but couldn't help noticing how passionately she captured every scene. Finally he asked, "Are you a professional photographer?" She turned toward him. "Not yet. It's my dream. You take pictures of everything?" "The train to forever." She laughed. "Almost everything. Every picture tells a story. What story would this train tell?" She looked out the window. "Maybe two strangers sitting together without knowing they'll become friends." Arjun smiled. "That's a nice story." Soon they were talking about travel, books, music, and dreams. Hours passed as if they were minutes. At the first major station, vendors walked through the train shouting, "Tea, coffee, samosas." Arjun bought 2 cups of tea. "You didn't ask if I wanted one," Ananya teased. "I guessed. And what if I didn't drink tea? I'd happily drink both." She laughed so loudly that nearby passengers smiled too. As the train crossed a long bridge over a shining river, Ananya raised her camera. Look, the morning sunlight reflected on the water like thousands of diamonds. She clicked several photographs. Arjun quietly watched her. You know, he said, you're happiest when you're taking pictures. And you're happiest when you're making someone laugh. She paused. I noticed. The train continued through forests, villages, and mountains. By afternoon, the compartment had become lively. An elderly couple sitting nearby invited everyone to share homemade lunch. Ananya contributed fruit. Arjun bought sweets from the station. Soon strangers were eating together like one family. The elderly woman smiled at them. You two make a lovely couple. Both of them blushed immediately. We just met today, Ananya explained. The old man chuckled. Sometimes one day is enough. The words lingered in their minds long after lunch. As evening approached, dark clouds gathered. Rain began falling heavily. Water drops raced down the train windows. The landscape looked magical. Ananya whispered, Rain always makes everything beautiful. Arjun replied softly, Not everything. What do you mean? It only reveals what's already beautiful. She looked at him for a moment before turning toward the rain, hiding her smile. Later, the train suddenly stopped in the middle of nowhere. An announcement explained that heavy rain had flooded the tracks ahead. The delay could last several hours. Passengers sighed. Some complained. Others tried to sleep. Instead of feeling frustrated, Ananya suggested, Let's walk to the door. Standing near the open doorway, they watched the rain falling over endless green fields. The cool wind blew through the train. It's peaceful, she said. It feels like the whole world stopped. Maybe, Arjun replied. The world stopped so we could enjoy this moment. Neither spoke for several minutes. Silence said enough. Eventually the rain eased. The train slowly continued its journey. Night arrived. The compartment lights glowed softly. Most passengers slept. Ananya couldn't. Neither could Arjun. They quietly talked under the dim lights. What scares you most? She asked. Losing people I care about. And you? Never finding someone who understands me. Arjun looked directly into her eyes. I think someone will. She smiled gently. I hope so. Around midnight, the train reached a large junction where it would remain for nearly 40 minutes. They stepped onto the platform. The station was peaceful. They bought hot chocolate and walked slowly beneath the platform lights. A street musician nearby played a soft melody on his violin. Without saying anything, Arjun extended his hand. Would you like to dance? She laughed. On a railway platform? Why not? There was no audience except a few smiling travelers. She accepted. For one beautiful minute, they danced beneath the station lights while the violin echoed through the night. When the train whistle sounded, they hurried back laughing. Back in their seats, they realized something. Neither wanted the journey to end. The next morning, they reached the mountains. Mist floated between the hills. Small waterfalls sparkled beside the tracks. Ananya leaned toward the window to take photographs. Suddenly, the train entered a tunnel. Everything became dark. Without thinking, she reached for support and accidentally held Arjun's hand. When the train emerged into sunlight, she quickly let go. I'm sorry, he smiled. It's okay. Neither mentioned it again, but both secretly wished she hadn't let go so quickly. Later that day, Arjun confessed something. You know, yesterday morning I was nervous about starting a new life. And now I'm nervous about saying goodbye. Her smile faded. My station comes before yours. I know. The words felt heavier than either expected. As the train neared her destination, announcements echoed through the coaches. Passengers gathered their luggage. The moment they had tried to ignore had finally arrived. Standing near the door, Ananya looked outside. I guess this is goodbye. Arjun reached into his bag and handed her a small notebook. What's this? The first page is blank. She opened it. Why? So you can write the next chapter. She smiled with tears in her eyes. Then she handed him one of her favorite photographs, a sunrise taken from the train window. On the back she wrote, Some journeys end at stations. Others begin there. The train slowed. Doors opened. She stepped onto the platform. For a moment, they simply looked at one another. The whistle blew. The train started moving again. Arjun stood at the door watching until she disappeared into the crowd. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. They stayed in touch through messages and video calls. Eventually, they realized something neither had wanted to admit. They weren't just friends. They had fallen in love. 1 year later, on the anniversary of their train journey, Arjun bought 2 tickets for the same route. He sent one to Ananya with a note. "Would you like to finish the journey we started together?" She arrived at the station wearing the same warm smile. He was waiting. As the train departed, they sat once again by the same window. This time there was no uncertainty. Halfway through the journey, Arjun took out a small ring. "Ananya," he said, "our first journey gave me unforgettable memories. Will you spend the rest of life's journey with me?" With happy tears in her eyes, she answered the only word he wanted to hear. "Yes." The passengers around them clapped. Even the elderly couple from the previous year happened to be traveling in the next coach. They recognized the pair, smiled, and wished them happiness. Years later, whenever people asked how they met, they would simply smile and say, "It all started with 2 reserved seats on a train and a journey that never truly ended."
The honeybee and the garden of many flowers. Long ago, in a valley surrounded by green hills, there lived a young honeybee named Bella. She was smaller than the other bees in her hive, but she was curious about everything. While the older bees flew straight to the flowers and back home, Bella always wanted to know more. "Why do flowers have different colors?" she would ask. "Why do some smell sweet and others smell spicy?" The older bees would laugh and say, "Just collect nectar, Bella. That is what bees do." But Bella was not satisfied with that answer. One bright spring morning, the queen bee called all the workers together. "Our hive needs fresh nectar," she said. "The winter is over, and the young bees will soon need food. Fly across the valley and gather what you can." The bees buzzed into the sky. Bella followed them, but instead of flying to the nearest field, she headed toward a mysterious garden she had never visited before. As she entered the garden, she saw flowers of every color imaginable. Red roses, yellow sunflowers, purple lavender, white daisies, orange marigolds, pink cherry blossoms, blue cornflowers, and many more danced gently in the breeze. Bella landed on a red rose first. "Good morning," said the rose. Bella jumped in surprise. "You can talk?" "Of course," replied the rose. "Flowers have always talked. Most creatures are simply too busy to listen." Bella smiled. "Then tell me about yourself." The rose straightened her petals proudly. "For centuries, people have loved roses. We have been symbols of love, friendship, courage, and beauty. Kings planted us in royal gardens, and poets wrote songs about us." Bella collected some nectar and thanked the rose. Next, she flew to a tall sunflower. The sunflower towered above the others, shining like a golden sun. "Hello, little bee," said the sunflower warmly. "You are so tall." Bella exclaimed. The sunflower laughed. "I grow toward the sunlight every day. My family has helped birds, insects, and humans for generations. Our seeds feed many creatures." Bella drank sweet nectar and felt energized. She continued her journey and soon arrived at a patch of lavender. The air smelled wonderful. "Welcome," whispered the lavender. "Your scent is amazing," Bella said. "Thank you. For hundreds of years, people have used our fragrance to bring peace and calm. We attract bees like you and help gardens flourish." Bella noticed many butterflies visiting the lavender. They fluttered happily from flower to flower. Further along, she met a daisy. The daisy seemed cheerful and friendly. "What makes you so happy?" Bella asked. The daisy giggled. "I enjoy simple things. Sunshine, rain, and visitors like you. Sometimes happiness is easier than people think." Bella thought about that for a moment. Then she flew to a bright orange marigold. The marigold greeted her with confidence. "In many places around the world," said the marigold, "people plant us to protect gardens. We are strong and resilient." Bella admired the flower's courage. As the day continued, she visited flower after flower. A cherry blossom told her stories of spring festivals and new beginnings. A lily spoke about elegance and purity. A tulip described colorful fields stretching beyond the horizon. A jasmine flower shared tales of warm evenings filled with sweet perfume. Every flower had a different story, a different purpose, and a different gift to offer the world. By afternoon, Bella's nectar pouch was nearly full, but something else had filled her as well: knowledge. She realized that although the flowers looked different, they all depended on one another. The flowers needed bees to carry pollen between blossoms. The bees needed flowers for nectar. Birds depended on seeds. Animals depended on plants. Even humans depended on healthy gardens and fields. Everything was connected. As Bella rested beneath a leaf, a dark cloud suddenly rolled across the sky. The wind grew stronger. A storm was coming. The flowers trembled. Heavy rain began to fall. Many petals bent under the weight of the water. Bella wanted to fly home, but she saw a small blue cornflower struggling against the wind. "Help!" cried the cornflower. Without hesitation, Bella flew over. "What can I do?" she asked. "Spread the word," said the cornflower. "The garden needs protection." Bella rushed from flower to flower. The sunflower used its tall stem to block part of the wind. The rose sheltered smaller flowers beneath its leaves. The sturdy marigolds helped hold the soil in place. Together, the flowers supported one another through the storm. Bella watched in amazement. The garden was strongest when everyone worked together. After several hours, the storm passed. Sunlight returned, sparkling on the raindrops. The flowers were tired but standing. The garden had survived. The sunflower looked down at Bella. "You helped save us today." Bella shook her head. "We all helped save one another." The flowers smiled. As evening approached, Bella finally began her journey back to the hive. When she arrived, the other bees were busy storing nectar. "Where have you been?" one bee asked. "In the garden of many flowers," Bella replied. The bees laughed. "Did you find nectar?" "Yes," Bella said, showing her full pouch. The bees were impressed. Then Bella told them everything she had learned. She spoke about the rose's history, the sunflower's strength, the lavender's calm spirit, the daisy's happiness, the marigold's resilience, and the lessons of cooperation she had witnessed. For the first time, the hive listened carefully. Even the queen bee was interested. When Bella finished, the queen nodded thoughtfully. "You discovered something important," she said. "Collecting nectar keeps us alive, but understanding the world makes us wise." From that day forward, Bella became known as the story bee. Young bees followed her through the valley, learning about flowers, nature, and the connections between all living things. And whenever spring returned, Bella would visit the garden of many flowers. The rose still shared stories. The sunflower still greeted the morning sun. The lavender still filled the air with fragrance. And Bella never stopped listening. Because she had learned that every flower has a story, every creature has a purpose, and the world becomes more beautiful when we take the time to understand one another.
The Boy, the Cow, and the Village Election. Long ago, in a peaceful village surrounded by green fields and winding rivers, lived a curious boy named Arif. He loved asking questions about everything. Why did birds fly in a V shape? Why did the moon change every night? Why did people choose one village leader instead of another? Arif's closest friend was not another child. It was a gentle brown cow named Lila. Lila belonged to Arif's family, but everyone joked that she was smarter than most people in the village. She seemed to understand every conversation, and whenever Arif sat beside her under the old banyan tree, he felt as though she was listening carefully. One sunny afternoon, Arif heard the villagers talking excitedly. "The election is next month," one farmer said. "We need a leader who keeps promises," another replied. Arif scratched his head. "What is an election?" he asked his grandfather. His grandfather smiled. "That's a wonderful question. Come with me." They sat beneath the banyan tree while Lila quietly chewed fresh grass. "An election," grandfather explained, "is a peaceful way for people to choose their leaders. Instead of fighting over who should lead, everyone gets a chance to vote." Arif looked puzzled. "So everyone decides together?" "Exactly." Lila let out a soft moo. Grandfather laughed. "I think Lila agrees." The next morning, Arif couldn't stop thinking about elections. He asked his teacher at school, "When did elections begin?" The teacher drew a circle on the board. Thousands of years ago, different societies developed different ways of choosing leaders. In some places, leaders inherited power from their families. In others, groups of people gathered to discuss and vote. Over many centuries, election systems changed and expanded. So elections have a long history. "They do," said the teacher. "Many countries gradually expanded who could vote. In many places, voting rights grew over time to include more citizens." Arif imagined people from long ago standing in town squares, raising hands or placing stones into jars to make choices. That evening, Arif walked with Lila across the fields. "I wish I could see history." Lila stopped walking. She looked toward the ancient banyan tree. A strange golden light appeared around its roots. "Moo." Arif blinked. The tree seemed to whisper, "Those who seek knowledge may travel through time, not to change history, but to learn from it." Before Arif could answer, a warm breeze surrounded him and Lila. Everything spun. When the wind stopped, they found themselves standing in an ancient marketplace. People wore clothes unlike anything Arif had ever seen. Some citizens were gathering to discuss important decisions. A wise elder explained that members of the community would choose representatives according to the customs of their time. Arif noticed something important. People debated respectfully. Some agreed. Some disagreed. Yet everyone tried to explain their reasons. Lila nudged him. "Moo." "I understand," Arif whispered. "Listening matters." The magical tree carried them to another place. This time they saw a kingdom. The king ruled because he had inherited the throne. Most ordinary people had no vote. Some citizens were happy. Others wished they had more say in decisions. Arif asked an old woman, "Would you like to vote?" She smiled gently. "If one day everyone has a chance to be heard, that would be wonderful." The wind returned. Next they visited another country hundreds of years later. People stood in long lines outside a public building. "What are they doing?" Arif asked. "They are voting," someone answered proudly. Arif noticed something else. Not everyone in the line looked the same. Some were farmers. Some were teachers. Some owned shops. Some worked in factories. The community had grown more inclusive over time. The people celebrated not because everyone agreed, but because everyone had a chance to participate according to the laws in place. Their next stop showed a difficult chapter in history. Some citizens wanted the right to vote, but had not yet been given it. They organized peaceful meetings. They spoke in public. They wrote letters. They asked lawmakers to change the rules. Years passed. Eventually, many places expanded voting rights through new laws and reforms. Arif realized history often changes little by little. Progress takes patience. The magical tree brought them back to their own village. Now the election campaign had begun. 3 candidates wished to become village leader. The first candidate made enormous promises. "I'll build 10 bridges in 1 month." The villagers clapped. The second candidate spoke calmly. "I cannot promise everything, but I will explain how we can improve roads, schools, and clean water step by step." Some people thought that speech sounded boring. The third candidate mostly criticized the others. "They are both terrible," but offered few ideas. Arif became confused. How do people know whom to choose? Grandfather smiled. By asking questions. That week the villagers organized a public meeting. Everyone was invited. Farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, young adults old enough to vote, elders. Each candidate answered questions. How will you pay for new projects? What will you do during floods? How will you improve education? Some answers were detailed. Some were unclear. Arif noticed something. The loudest speaker wasn't always the most prepared. Lila mooed quietly. Arif laughed. I think you're voting for careful planning. Election day finally arrived. The polling place opened early. Election workers greeted voters politely. People waited patiently. Each eligible voter marked a secret ballot according to the local rules. No one could force another person to choose a certain candidate. Grandfather explained. A secret ballot helps people vote freely. Arif watched carefully. Everything was organized. Names were checked. Ballots were placed safely into a sealed box. Observers watched the process. When voting ended, counting began. Each ballot was counted carefully. Everyone wanted the result to be accurate. The second candidate won by a small margin. The first candidate looked disappointed. The third candidate sighed. Then something wonderful happened. All three candidates shook hands. The winner thanked everyone. The others congratulated the winner and promised to continue helping the village. Grandfather smiled. That is one of the strengths of peaceful elections. People compete with ideas, and afterward the community continues working together. Months passed. The new leader repaired a bridge. The work took longer than expected. Some villagers complained. Others remained patient. At the next community meeting, citizens asked respectful questions. The leader explained the budget and the challenges. Not everyone agreed with every decision, but discussion continued peacefully. Arif learned that elections are not the end of democracy. They are one part of it. Citizens also stay informed, ask questions, and participate in community life between elections. One evening, Arif sat beneath the banyan tree beside Lila. I've learned so much. Lila gave a cheerful moo. Grandfather joined them. What did you discover? Arif smiled. I learned that elections have changed throughout history. I learned that many societies develop different ways of choosing leaders. I learned that in many places voting rights expanded over time. I learned that people should listen carefully before making decisions. I learned that promises should be examined, not simply believed. I learned that peaceful disagreement is healthier than fighting. Grandfather nodded proudly. And what did Lila teach you? Arif laughed. She taught me that even when people argue, it's still important to stay calm. Lila mooed happily as though accepting the compliment. Years later, Arif grew up and became a respected teacher. Whenever children asked about elections, he never told them whom to support. Instead, he encouraged them to learn history, ask thoughtful questions, verify information from reliable sources, and respect that people may hold different political views. He always ended his lesson with the same words. A healthy community depends not only on good leaders, but also on informed citizens who participate respectfully. As for Lila, she grew old peacefully in the green fields where she had spent her life. Whenever Arif visited the old banyan tree, he smiled. He never knew whether the magical journey had truly happened or had simply been a wonderful dream. But the lessons remained real. History helps us understand the present. Listening is as important as speaking. Questions are powerful. And communities are strongest when people choose their leaders peacefully, respect the rules of the election, and continue working together afterward. The old banyan tree rustled gently in the evening breeze. Lila gave one final happy moo. Arif smiled. Thank you, my friend. And together they watched the sunset over the fields, hopeful that every new generation would learn from history and help build a kinder, wiser future.
Audie Murphy, the most decorated American soldier of World War II. Good morning, afternoon, everyone. Today I will talk about one of the greatest heroes of World War II, Audie Murphy. He is remembered as the most decorated American combat soldier of the Second World War. Despite being small in size and only 19 years old when he entered combat, Murphy became famous for his bravery, leadership, and determination. His story shows how an ordinary young man became an extraordinary hero through courage and sacrifice. Early life. Audie Leon Murphy was born on June 20, 1925, in Kingston, Texas, USA. He grew up in a poor farming family during the Great Depression. His father abandoned the family, and his mother died when he was still a teenager. Murphy left school early to help support his brothers and sisters by working on farms and hunting for food. After the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, the United States entered World War II. Murphy wanted to serve his country. Although he was considered too small and underweight by some military recruiters, he was eventually accepted into the U.S. Army in 1942. Training. Murphy completed basic military training and quickly impressed his instructors with his discipline, excellent marksmanship, and determination. In 1943, he was sent to North Africa, where he experienced his first combat operations. From there, he continued fighting in Sicily, Italy, France, and Germany. Fighting in Italy. Murphy first saw heavy combat during the Allied campaign in Italy. He showed courage by leading attacks against enemy positions and protecting fellow soldiers during dangerous missions. His commanders noticed his calmness under fire and his willingness to volunteer for difficult assignments. Because of his leadership, he was promoted several times during the war. Campaign in France. After the Allied landings in southern France in August 1944, Murphy and his unit advanced through heavily defended German positions. During these battles, he repeatedly rescued wounded soldiers, destroyed enemy machine gun positions, and led successful attacks despite being outnumbered. His bravery earned him several military decorations. The Battle of Holzwihr. Murphy's greatest moment came in January 1945 near the village of Holzwihr in France. German forces launched a powerful attack using infantry and tanks. Most of Murphy's company was forced to withdraw. Instead of retreating, Murphy climbed onto a burning American tank destroyer. Using its machine gun, he fired continuously at the advancing German soldiers while calling artillery support by radio. He fought alone for nearly an hour despite the danger of the burning vehicle exploding. After running out of ammunition, he climbed down, rejoined his men, and led a successful counterattack that forced the Germans to retreat. For this extraordinary act of heroism, Audie Murphy received the Medal of Honor, the highest military award in the United States. Awards and decorations. By the end of World War II, Audie Murphy had received the Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Legion of Merit, many additional American and Allied military decorations. He became the most decorated American combat soldier of World War II. Life after the war. After returning home, Murphy became a national hero. He wrote an autobiography titled To Hell and Back, describing his wartime experiences. The book became a bestseller and was later made into a successful Hollywood movie. Remarkably, Murphy played himself in the film. He also became an actor, appearing in many Western movies. Personal challenges. Although famous, Murphy struggled with the emotional effects of war. Today, doctors recognize these problems as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Instead of hiding his struggles, Murphy spoke publicly about the psychological effects of combat and encouraged veterans to seek help. His honesty helped raise awareness about the mental health challenges faced by soldiers. Death. On May 28, 1971, Audie Murphy died in a plane crash in Virginia at the age of 45. He was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. His grave remains one of the most visited in the cemetery. Legacy. Audie Murphy's courage continues to inspire soldiers and civilians around the world. His life demonstrates that true leadership is measured not by physical size or background but by courage, determination, and commitment to others. Military schools, museums, books, and documentaries continue to honor his achievements. His story reminds us of the sacrifices made by millions of soldiers during World War II. Conclusion. In conclusion, Audie Murphy was far more than a decorated soldier. He was a courageous leader, a devoted patriot, a successful author and actor, and an advocate for veterans. His bravery during World War II saved countless lives and earned him the highest military honors. Even today, his life serves as a powerful example of courage, sacrifice, and service. John Basilone was born on November 4, 1916, in Buffalo and grew up in Raritan. He was the sixth of 10 children in an Italian-American family. His parents, Salvatore and Dora Basilone, taught their children the importance of hard work, honesty, and family. As a boy, John enjoyed sports and outdoor activities. Friends remembered him as quiet, humble, and physically strong. He attended local schools but was more interested in practical work than academics. Before the Marines. After leaving school, Basilone enlisted in the United States Army in 1934. He served for about 3 years, including time in the Philippines. During his Army service, he became skilled with machine guns and learned military discipline. After completing his enlistment, he worked as a truck driver but missed military life. Joining the Marine Corps. In July 1940, Basilone enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. He completed recruit training and became known for his exceptional physical fitness and leadership. He was eventually assigned to the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, part of the famous 1st Marine Division. When the United States entered World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Basilone was sent to the Pacific. The Guadalcanal Campaign. In 1942, American forces landed on Guadalcanal to stop Japanese expansion. The campaign became one of the bloodiest battles of the Pacific War. Basilone commanded 2 machine gun sections defending a crucial part of the American line. The heroic night of October 24 to 25, 1942. During the battle for Henderson Field, thousands of Japanese soldiers attacked Marine positions. Many Marines were killed or wounded. Basilone's machine gun crews suffered heavy casualties. Despite this, he repaired damaged machine guns while under fire. He carried ammunition through enemy attacks. He personally fought off repeated assaults. He reorganized surviving Marines. He kept his position operating throughout the night. At one point ammunition nearly ran out. Ignoring enemy fire, Basilone crossed dangerous ground to obtain more ammunition and return safely. His actions prevented the Japanese from breaking through. Military historians believe his leadership saved many American lives. Medal of Honor. For extraordinary bravery, Basilone received the Medal of Honor. On February 4, 1943, he received the medal from Franklin D. Roosevelt. He became one of the most famous Marines in America. Returning home. After Guadalcanal, Basilone returned to the United States. He participated in nationwide war bond campaigns. Millions of Americans admired him. He appeared in newspapers, gave speeches, and encouraged people to support the war effort. Despite his fame, Barcelone disliked publicity. He repeatedly asked to return to combat because he believed his place was with fellow Marines. Marriage. While stationed at Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, Barcelone met Marine Sergeant Lena May Ritchie. They married on July 10, 1944. Their marriage lasted only a few months before Barcelone returned to the Pacific. Return to combat. Although military leaders wanted him to remain in the United States as a hero and recruiter, Barcelone insisted on returning to battle. He joined the Marines preparing for the invasion of Iwo Jima. Battle of Iwo Jima. On February 19, 1945, American forces landed on Iwo Jima. The island was heavily defended. Japanese troops had built tunnels, bunkers, and fortified positions. The fighting became one of the fiercest battles of World War II. Final heroic actions. During the first day of the invasion, Barcelone led Marines through intense enemy fire. He helped destroy heavily fortified Japanese blockhouses. He directed tanks through dangerous minefields. He inspired fellow Marines by leading from the front. While continuing the attack, Barcelone was killed by enemy fire. He was 28 years old. Navy Cross. For his heroism on Iwo Jima, Barcelone was posthumously awarded the Navy Cross, the second highest military decoration awarded by the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps. Receiving both the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross is exceptionally rare. Burial. John Barcelone is buried at Arlington National Cemetery, where many distinguished American service members are laid to rest. Legacy. Barcelone remains one of the most celebrated Marines in U.S. history. His legacy is honored through streets and schools named after him. Military buildings bearing his name. Memorial statues. Annual commemorative events. Historical books and documentaries. In popular culture, John Barcelone's story reached a wider audience through the television miniseries The Pacific, where he was portrayed by John Seda. The series introduced his courage and sacrifice to a new generation. Personal qualities. Those who served with Barcelone described him as courageous under pressure. Calm during combat. Humble despite fame. Loyal to fellow Marines. Dedicated to duty. A natural leader. Unlike many celebrated war heroes, he never sought recognition and consistently requested to return to the front lines. Key facts. Full name, John Barcelone. Nickname, Manila John, from his service in the Philippines. Born, November 4, 1916. Birthplace, Buffalo, New York, USA. Raised in Raritan, New Jersey. Died, February 19, 1945. Age at death, 28. Place of death, Iwo Jima. Branch, United States Marine Corps. Rank, Gunnery Sergeant. Major battles, Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima. Highest awards, Medal of Honor, Navy Cross. Conclusion. John Barcelone's life exemplified courage, leadership, and selfless service. After becoming one of America's most famous war heroes, he chose to leave the safety of home and return to combat because he believed his duty was alongside his fellow Marines. His actions at Guadalcanal earned him the Medal of Honor, and his final acts of bravery on Iwo Jima earned him the Navy Cross. More than 80 years later, he remains an enduring symbol of dedication and sacrifice in the history of the United States Marine Corps. The Haunted Ride Home, Part 1. When I got off the bus at Goripur Junction, I was completely stunned. Every shop was closed, and there wasn't a single soul in sight. I glanced at my wristwatch and nearly jumped in shock. It was almost 11:30 at night. I had already missed my train, and to avoid the unbearable pushing and crowding, I had deliberately let 2 buses go. But I had never imagined it would get this late. Perhaps I wouldn't have been so surprised had I not spent most of the journey sleeping comfortably on the bus. Anyway, from Goripur Junction it takes about 30 minutes by bicycle to reach my village, crossing 3 or 4 small villages and a vast deserted field. Taking the road on the right from the junction, I walked briskly along the brick-paved path. Near Sitaganj, the road split into 2, and one of those branches led directly to my village. After walking a short distance, I stopped in front of the closed gate of a small house on the left. It was a corrugated iron gate, and above it, in large Bengali letters, was written, "Bicycles kept here." This was the house of old Paresh Senator. Almost everyone from our village who traveled to the city for work or studies left their bicycles and motorcycles here for safekeeping. The charge was minimal, 5 taka for a bicycle and 10 taka for a motorcycle. I knocked loudly on the iron gate several times, but there was no response. The cold winter wind made my teeth chatter, so I wrapped my muffler tighter around my head. Rubbing my palms together for warmth, I called out, "Uncle, please open the gate. I've come to take my bicycle." I knocked again and again, but still nothing happened. I took out my phone to call one of my cousins, only to discover that the battery had died without my noticing. Muttering in frustration, I turned back toward the gate. Suddenly, I saw a hunched black figure emerging from the darkness, slowly making its way toward me. As it came closer, the faint glow of the hurricane lantern in its hand illuminated its face. It was Paresh Sen. Relief washed over me. The anxiety that had been building inside me finally eased. Holding the lantern high, the old man examined my face carefully before asking in a trembling voice, "Oh, it's you. Where have you been so late, son?" I simply nodded without saying much and followed him inside. His entire body was wrapped in a thick black blanket. He wore a monkey cap on his head, a pair of worn black boots on his feet, and his familiar thick-framed spectacles. A few moments later, I wheeled my bicycle out of the gate with a torch in hand. As soon as I mounted it, the heavy iron gate slammed shut behind me with a loud metallic clang. Shivering in the freezing cold, I began pedaling. I had already slipped on my gloves. Before long, I realized that my trembling lips had unconsciously begun humming an old childhood rhyme. If the cold makes you shiver and sigh, start singing, and let the warmth reply. Humming softly to myself, I continued my lonely journey. For the next 15 or 20 minutes, everything seemed normal. Then, all at once, I sensed a change in the atmosphere. The cold became far sharper than before. The houses and trees submerged in darkness now seemed to be staring at me with eerie, watchful eyes, as though they were silently plotting something together. A chilling sensation crept slowly down my spine. I pressed harder on the pedals, but the bicycle refused to move any faster. My legs felt frozen stiff. It was as if someone had tied the Himalayas to the back of my bicycle, forcing me to drag its impossible weight. Panic made me lose my balance. I tried once more to speed up. And at that exact moment, An icy hand landed on my left shoulder. I let out a horrifying scream and tumbled off the bicycle. The spot where the hand had touched remained freezing cold, though the hand itself seemed to have vanished. After several seconds, I struggled to my feet. My legs trembled like those of a drunken man, and my throat had gone completely dry. Swallowing hard, I swept my dim torchlight across the darkness. "Who's there?" I shouted in a shaky voice. "What do you want?" No answer. Not even the faintest sound. Gripping my bicycle with both hands, I cried out once more. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" Silence. Then, without warning, something invisible pierced the pitch-black darkness of the moonless night. Right beside my ear, in a hollow, broken, terrifying whisper, it said, "Why do you want to know who I am? Keep riding. Ride faster. I won't harm you, otherwise." A grotesque, rasping laugh followed. Ha, ha, ha. The icy breath from its mouth entered one ear and seemed to pass straight out through the other. A nauseating stench filled the air, turning my stomach. This preserves the suspense and reads like a published English ghost story. So it would be best translated in Part 2, Part 3. The Haunted Ride Home, Part 2. Without another word, I climbed back onto the bicycle and began to pedal. The same thing happened again. No matter how hard I pushed, the bicycle refused to move properly. It crawled forward as if weighed down by something immense. Then I felt it again. An icy hand gripped my left shoulder, exactly where it had touched before. Another freezing hand clamped around the right side of my abdomen. The unseen being was holding me with both hands. The muscles beneath its grip seemed to freeze solid. And then, suddenly, the bicycle shot forward at an unbelievable speed. I had no idea where we were headed. Desperate to stop, I squeezed the brakes with all my strength, but they were completely useless. The bicycle raced onward as if possessed, flying past trees and houses that blurred into streaks of darkness. Before long, we reached a three-way intersection. I recognized it instantly. It was Sitaganj Junction. The road to the left led toward my villag. Another 10 or 15 minutes along that route would take me across the vast open field, and then I would finally be home. But another thought suddenly flashed through my mind. The cremation ground. The haunted cremation ground that stood in the middle of that lonely field. Ever since childhood I had heard countless strange and terrifying stories about that place. The villagers claimed that on moonless nights, ghosts held their dreadful revels there until dawn. They delighted in leading lonely travelers astray, watching them wander in terror. Any food or fruit the travelers carried would mysteriously disappear, stolen by unseen hands. Until barely an hour ago, I had dismissed every one of those tales as nothing more than village superstition. But now, on this dark, moonless night, after everything I had just experienced, the solid walls separating fact from folklore seemed to melt away like ice beneath a crashing ocean wave. At last we entered the road leading to the cremation. The familiar path I had traveled countless times suddenly felt utterly foreign. Only moments earlier the world had been swallowed by darkness. Yet here, an eerie glow illuminated the tops of the enormous banyan, peepal, and shiora trees surrounding the cremation ground. The sight sent shivers through my entire body. It looked as though the place had dressed itself for the arrival of a gathering of restless spirits. Strangely, the invisible passenger riding behind me no longer terrified me as much as before. My body had begun to grow accustomed to the icy grip resting upon my shoulder and side. I could think of only one thing. If I can just cross this field, I'll be safe. But another question haunted me. Where is this spirit taking me? Will it follow me all the way home? The thought had barely crossed my mind when an immense force slammed into my back. I was hurled off the bicycle. My body rolled violently across the roadside before tumbling into the low grassy field opposite the cremation ground. I landed flat on my back, gasping for breath. As I looked up, I saw a shadowy figure grab hold of a hanging branch of a giant banyan tree and scramble upward with astonishing speed. It had to be the same spirit that had ridden behind me. Then, the entire cremation ground erupted. Every tree began shaking violently. A deafening uproar echoed through the night. It sounded as though hundreds, perhaps thousands, of unseen beings were screaming, laughing, and racing through the trees all at once. Branches snapped with explosive cracks and crashed to the ground. The earth itself began to tremble beneath me. The grassy field seemed to split apart, long cracks spreading across its surface as if the ground were being torn open by invisible hands. I was too weak to stand. Every bone in my body ached. Still, with unbearable effort, I dragged myself to my feet and staggered toward home, half walking and half crawling through the darkness. By the time I reached my house, I could barely remain conscious. I washed the dirt from my face, hands, and feet before collapsing onto my bed. Every inch of my body throbbed with unbearable pain. When I placed a thermometer under my tongue, it read 105 degrees Fahrenheit. I closed my eyes, wondering whether I would even live to see the morning. The Haunted Ride Home, Part 3 Finale. When I woke the next morning, everything had changed. The agonizing pain that had consumed my body the previous night had completely vanished. My fever was gone as well, my temperature had returned to normal. Even the horrifying events of the night before no longer felt as vivid, as though they had faded into the haze of a terrible dream. There was only one thing that reminded me it had all been real. My bicycle. Several parts of it were bent and twisted, as if it had been hurled against something with tremendous force. Just then, my mother handed me a shopping bag and asked me to go to the market. After brushing my teeth, I climbed onto the damaged bicycle and set off. The weekly market was held at Sitaganj Junction, the very place I had passed the previous night. A few minutes later, I arrived at the road beside the cremation ground. This time, I stopped. Getting off the bicycle, I stood silently, staring at the place that had haunted. It was as if the horrors of the previous night had never existed. I stood there, unable to make sense of it. Slowly, my head began to feel heavy again. Had I imagined it all? Was it nothing more than a feverish nightmare? Or had something beyond human understanding truly crossed my path beneath that moonless sky? I had no answers. I mounted my bicycle and quietly rode away. But as I left the cremation ground behind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I glanced back one last time. The trees. The short blades of grass. Even the old iron cremation furnace. They all seemed to have turned toward me. And in the silence of the morning, they were smiling. Not warmly. Not kindly. But with the knowing, mocking smiles of those who had witnessed the terror of the previous night. And knew that no one would ever believe my story. If you like, please subscribe Magic Sleep. Stay with Magic Sleep. Thank you, all of you.
College campus for years earlier.
Golden afternoon. Students walk across campus. Emma, 22, warm-hearted and ambitious, sits under a tree reading. Ethan, 23, funny and kind, approaches with 2 coffees. Ethan, I figured you'd forget lunch again. Emma, smiling, you're starting to know me too well. They laugh. Montage. Asterisk studying together. Asterisk road trips. Asterisk dancing in the rain. Asterisk graduation photos. Asterisk promising to stay together. Ethan, no matter where life takes us, I'll always find my way back to you. Emma hugs him. Scene 2, life gets complicated. 1 year later. Emma's father suffers a financial crisis. The family business is drowning in debt. Bills pile up. Emma receives a call from her mother. Mother, there's someone who wants to help us. Scene 3, Daniel. Emma meets Daniel, 30. A successful architect. Polite. Respectful. Quiet. He doesn't act arrogant. Emma learns Daniel offered to help her family's business, but only after asking permission to get to know her. Her parents are grateful. Emma remains silent. Scene 4, Ethan returns. Ethan comes back from another state after getting a new engineering job. He rushes to Emma's apartment. She isn't there. A neighbor tells him. Neighbor, didn't you hear? She's getting married next month. Ethan freezes. Scene 5, coffee shop. Emma and Ethan meet after months apart. Silence. Ethan, tell me this isn't what you want. Emma fights tears. Emma, want doesn't always matter. Ethan, then don't do it. Emma, my family needs me. They hold hands. Neither can let go. Scene 6, Daniel notices. Daniel slowly realizes Emma isn't smiling around him. He sees her staring at old photos. He hears her quietly crying one night after a family dinner. Instead of confronting her, he asks gently, Daniel, is there someone else? Long silence. Emma nods. Scene 7, the truth. Emma tells Daniel everything. She apologizes. Emma, I never wanted to lie. I tried to convince myself I could love you, but my heart never left him. Daniel listens. No anger. Only sadness. Scene 8, wedding morning. Beautiful countryside venue. Guests arrive. Flowers. Music. Emma wears a white dress. She looks devastated. Daniel notices. Scene 9, Ethan outside. Ethan stands outside the venue. He has no invitation. He just wants one last glimpse of Emma before disappearing forever. Scene 10, the ceremony. Everyone stands. Emma walks down the aisle. The officiant begins. When it's time for the vows, Daniel looks at Emma, then at the guests. He takes a deep breath. Daniel, I've spent months trying to convince myself that love is something you can earn. That if you're patient enough, kind enough, good enough, someone's heart will eventually choose you. But love doesn't work that way. The room becomes silent. He turns toward Emma. I don't want a wife who's trying to keep everyone else happy. I want a woman who smiles because she's exactly where she wants to be. Emma starts crying. Daniel looks toward the entrance. Ethan, come inside. Everyone turns. Ethan slowly walks in. Confused. Daniel smiles sadly. You loved her long before I ever met her. And judging by the way she's looking at you, she never stopped loving you. Emma bursts into tears. Daniel takes Emma's hand and gently places it into Ethan's. I refuse to build my happiness on someone else's heartbreak. Silence. Some guests begin crying. Emma shakes her head. I don't deserve your kindness. Daniel smiles. This isn't kindness. It's freedom. For all three of us. Scene 11, the decision. Daniel removes his wedding ring. Places it on the altar. The officiant asks, what happens now? Daniel laughs softly. Now. The right couple gets married. Guests begin applauding. Emma looks at Ethan. Ethan asks quietly, are you sure? Daniel nods. I've never been more sure. Scene 12 in New Vows. The officiant smiles. If everyone agrees, perhaps love has simply found its rightful place today. Emma and Ethan exchange vows. Simple. Honest. No expensive speeches. Just truth. Ethan. I spent every day hoping I'd see you again. I never imagined it would happen like this. But I'll spend the rest of my life making sure this second chance was worth it. Emma. I thought love meant sacrifice. Today I learned. Real love also means letting go. They kiss. The audience erupts in applause. Daniel quietly walks away. Alone. But peaceful. Scene 13, 1 year later. A charity event. Emma and Ethan have started a non-profit helping struggling families. A familiar face arrives. Daniel. He is smiling. Not lonely anymore. He introduces someone. Lucy. A doctor. Confident. Funny. Daniel finally found someone who chose him first. Emma hugs Daniel. Emma. Thank you. For giving us a future. Daniel smiles. I didn't give it to you. It was always yours. Final scene. Daniel walks away holding Lucy's hand. Emma and Ethan watch from a distance. 3 lives. 3 different journeys. No villains. Just people making the hardest choice. Ending narration. Sometimes love isn't about holding on. Sometimes love is having the courage to let go. Because the greatest act of love is wanting someone else's happiness, even when it costs your own. Fade out. The end. This version is written to feel authentic for an American audience, with natural English dialogue, emotionally grounded characters.
The Boy Who Vanished. 20 years ago, the Greenheart Jungle was one of the most mysterious forests in the world. Stretching for hundreds of miles, it was filled with giant ancient trees, hidden waterfalls, dangerous rivers, and animals that few people had ever seen. Local villagers believed the jungle protected its own secrets and never let strangers discover them. Many explorers entered the forest, but some never returned. Despite the stories, millions of tourists visited the national park every year to experience its breathtaking beauty. Among them was the Carter family. Michael Carter, his wife Sarah, and their 5-year-old son Ethan had traveled from another country for a family vacation. Ethan was a cheerful little boy with bright blue eyes and endless curiosity. Every flower, butterfly, and bird amazed him. As they walked along a forest trail, Ethan laughed while chasing colorful butterflies. "Stay close," Sarah called. "I will, Mommy," Ethan shouted without looking back. A beautiful blue butterfly landed on a nearby tree. Ethan smiled. "I'm going to catch you." The butterfly flew deeper into the forest. Without realizing it, Ethan followed. The sounds of tourists slowly disappeared. The voices of his parents faded. Only birds and rustling leaves remained. When the butterfly disappeared, Ethan looked around. Everything looked exactly the same. Tall trees surrounded him in every direction. "Mama," silence. "Daddy," nothing. Fear slowly entered his heart. He began running. "Mom. Dad." His tiny voice echoed through the jungle. Tears rolled down his face. Hours passed. The sun began to set. Darkness covered the forest. Rain started falling. Ethan sat beneath a huge tree, hugging his knees. He cried until he fell asleep. The next morning, the search began. Hundreds of police officers, forest rangers, helicopters, volunteers, and rescue dogs searched every corner of the jungle. His parents refused to leave. Sarah cried every day. Michael blamed himself. Days became weeks. The search expanded farther into the jungle. They found Ethan's tiny shoe beside a river. Nothing else. The government finally ended the rescue mission. Everyone believed the little boy had died. His parents returned home with broken hearts. But Ethan was still alive. Deep inside the jungle lived a hidden tribe called the Aruka. They had almost no contact with the outside world. One morning, an old hunter named Karan discovered a frightened little boy sleeping beside a tree. The child was weak, hungry, covered with insect bites. Karan gently lifted him into his arms. The tribe's healer cared for Ethan. For many days, he had a high fever. The tribe believed the jungle spirits had brought the child to them for a reason. Since no one came looking for him that deep inside the forest, they decided to raise him as one of their own. Ethan slowly forgot the language he once spoke. He learned the Aruka language instead. He learned to hunt with a bow before he was 10. He could climb cliffs without fear. He could hear animals long before anyone else. He learned which plants healed wounds and which were poisonous. The jungle became his home. The tribe became his family. 15 years later, Ethan was no longer a frightened child. He had become one of the strongest hunters in the tribe. Standing over 6 feet tall, with long black hair tied behind his head and powerful muscles built from years of climbing trees and hunting, he moved through the jungle almost silently. Animals trusted him. Birds often landed near him. Even wild wolves seemed unafraid. The tribe believed the jungle itself protected him. Still, every night Ethan dreamed of strange things. Bright lights, tall buildings, cars, a smiling woman calling his name. He never understood these dreams. The tribe's elders simply said, "They are memories from another life." One day, while hunting near the edge of the jungle, Ethan climbed a hill and saw something he had never seen before. A city. Huge buildings touched the sky. Cars moved like tiny insects. At night, thousands of lights glittered in the distance. He stared in amazement. "What kind of world is that?" he whispered. For the first time in his life, he wondered if there was another place beyond the jungle. He didn't know that, at that very moment, fate was preparing to change his life forever. Far away, a young wildlife photographer named Lily Anderson was packing her camera. Her dream was to explore Greenheart Jungle. She had no idea that her journey would lead her to a man the world believed had died 20 years ago, and that their meeting would become a love story neither of them could ever imagine.
Chapter 2: The Girl with the Camera. The morning sun rose over the city, painting the sky with shades of gold and orange. In a small apartment overlooking the busy streets, Lily Anderson stood by her window with a cup of coffee in her hand. She had dreamed of this day for years. At 24 years old, Lily was already becoming a well-known wildlife photographer. Her photographs of rare birds, endangered animals, and untouched forests had appeared in magazines around the world. But one place had always fascinated her more than any other, the mysterious Greenheart jungle. She had heard countless stories about it. Some people believed it was haunted. Others said it was home to an isolated tribe that no outsider had ever truly met. There were even old legends about a little boy who had disappeared there 20 years earlier. Most people thought the stories were just myths. Lily wasn't interested in myths. She wanted the truth. Her best friend, Sophie, helped her pack the last of her equipment. "Are you sure you want to go?" Sophie asked. Lily smiled. "You know me." "Exactly. That's why I'm worried." Lily laughed. "I'll be with professional guides. I'll be fine." "You always say that before doing something dangerous." Lily zipped her backpack. Inside were 2 cameras, several lenses, extra batteries, a notebook, a drone, hiking boots, first aid supplies, a flashlight, and enough food for several days. She looked at a framed photograph on her desk. It showed her late father. He had been a famous nature photographer before he died when Lily was 16. He had always told her, "Nature hides its greatest beauty from those who are afraid." Those words had inspired her entire life. The next morning, Lily arrived at Greenheart National Park. The entrance was crowded with tourists from many countries. Children laughed. Tour guides explained safety rules. Took pictures beside enormous wooden signs welcoming them to the jungle. Lily breathed deeply. The fresh jungle air smelled of rain, flowers, and ancient trees. "It feels magical," she whispered. Their guide introduced himself. "My name is Daniel. Please stay together at all times. Greenheart Jungle is beautiful, but it can also be dangerous." The group nodded. Daniel continued. "There are poisonous snakes, wild cats, deep rivers, and cliffs hidden beneath the trees. Never leave the marked trails." Everyone agreed. Except Lily's attention was already focused on a bright blue bird flying overhead. She quickly lifted her camera. Click! 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 The bird flew deeper into the forest. Lily smiled. What an amazing photograph! Without realizing it, she slowly followed it. For nearly an hour she continued taking pictures. Butterflies danced around colorful flowers. Tiny monkeys swung through the trees. Rare orchids covered ancient branches. Every few minutes she forgot how far she had walked. Eventually the bird disappeared. Lily lowered her camera. Silence. No voices. No tourists. No guide. Only endless trees. Her smile disappeared. Daniel. No answer. Hello? Nothing. She looked in every direction. Every path looked the same. Her heart began beating faster. I'd made a terrible mistake. She searched for the trail. Instead, she found only more forest. Clouds gathered overhead. Thunder rumbled. Within minutes, heavy rain poured from the sky. The ground became slippery. Small streams quickly turned into rushing rivers. Lily slipped while crossing wet rocks. Her backpack fell into the mud. One camera lens cracked. Oh no. She carefully picked it up. At least her main camera still worked. She continued walking. Hours passed. She grew hungry. Tired. Cold. Afraid. As darkness approached, strange animal calls echoed through the jungle. Some sounded like screams. Others sounded almost human. Lily's hand shook. She She climbed onto a large rock to stay safe. What am I going to do? Tears filled her eyes. Far away, Ethan was returning from a hunt with several deer slung over his shoulders. Suddenly he stopped. He listened carefully. The wind carried a strange sound. A human voice. Crying. He had not heard the voice of an outsider in years. Curious, he quietly followed the sound through the trees. After several minutes he reached a small clearing. There, sitting alone on a rock, was a young woman wearing muddy hiking clothes. Her camera rested beside her. She looked frightened. Ethan had never seen anyone like her. Her golden hair shimmered even beneath the cloudy sky. Her green eyes searched the darkness. She looked nothing like the people in his tribe. Lily suddenly sensed someone watching her. She slowly turned. Standing between the trees was a tall young man carrying a bow. His long dark hair fell over his shoulders. Rain dripped from his face. He stood perfectly still. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Lily's heart raced. Was he dangerous? Was he part of the mysterious tribe people talked about? Ethan stared at the strange girl with the camera. Something about her felt familiar. Not because he had seen her before, but because she reminded him of the forgotten world he sometimes dreamed about. Finally, he took one careful step forward. In slow, uncertain English, he spoke the first words he had said to an outsider in 20 years. Are you lost? Lily looked at him with relief filling her eyes. Yes, she whispered. Please help me. Ethan hesitated. The elders had always warned him never to bring outsiders into their home. But leaving her alone meant certain danger. He looked toward the dark forest, then back at Lily. Finally, he nodded. Come. Lily picked up her backpack and followed the mysterious man into the jungle, unaware that this single decision would change both of their lives forever.